Well, you were talking about that communication of the government to the people about this immigration policy, how the U.S. eventually said, even Nigerian government also said, there isn't any travel ban. But the thing is, we'd always known that there wasn't any travel ban. From your perspective, did they address the issues wherein people thought, look, I was turned back, those cases which were being circulated, did actually speak to those issues? Do people now know what to expect, how you need to conduct yourself when you're traveling so you don't fall foul of any law?
Actually, that's the other thing that I think is a very important thing, that government or leaders who stand to represent the nation need to look at, when you look at how it affects the other person on the other side, first of all, it affects your communication. But part of your communication is what you end up doing. For example, I would have expected that as the Minister for Foreign Affairs is announcing that the travel ban did not affect Nigerians, rather than say, I have been informed that no Nigerians were turned back, you should ask, if you were turned back, this is the opportunity for you to come and deal with the issue so that we seem to be addressing it. Because it is possible that by error, somebody could have been turned back. And it happened, I mean, even not just Nigerians, one of the top professors of the Holocaust historians in the world, who is a French guy and who is actually Jewish and was born in Egypt, and Egypt is not on the list, was about to be turned back and was detained for 10 hours in Los Angeles airport, where there seem to be some overzealous characters there fundamentally. Now, if that happened and the American embassy says it didn't happen, the Nigerian government says it's not supposed to happen, but it could have happened, then what I expect would have happened is that for the government to have said, all right, if by accident it did happen, we will talk to the American government. You see, because we've got to start to talk as if we are responsible to the people, for the people. That's a challenge. I'm talking about communication.
Do you think that was missing?
That's missing fundamentally. If for any reason there was an error, for example, how does our system, that's one of the things you find at the American system. I had a friend of mine who was wrongfully delayed or detained in Mozambique, but he happened to have an American passport. The US government swung into action. The embassy spoke to them and said, what's going on here? You know, that's a challenge you have in Nigeria. When you do go abroad, to even get our own embassy to respond to requests is a problem.
Now the bone of contention seems to be between the borders, because these people say that they did not get into the American land or the American state. They were just at the border point, yes, where they can be allowed entry or denied entry, and they were denied, yes, entry according to them. Their phones were taken away. They were given their phones back and then immediately put into another plane back to Nigeria. The time lapse between having to report to the Nigerian embassy, and they cannot report to the US embassy because they are not in the American soil just yet. Yes. That is a lacuna. How do we begin to address that?
Yes, I agree. It is a lacuna. But that is why when that situation has occurred and the minister is making an announcement, he should be also addressing the weakest people who have been affected wrongly. Everybody who's followed the American travel ban will know that there was confusion in that ban from top to the bottom. Never mind that the president announced that it was wonderfully rolled out. Everybody admits it was poorly rolled out. Everybody except him, basically. So there was a problem. It was misinterpreted. It was not clear what it meant at different stages. Innocent people from all over the world, not just Nigeria, were thrown back. Now, my point is this. When a man gets thrown back in that situation, that's why the new travel ban actually is clearer. It says if you have a valid visa, you're not supposed to be thrown back. It's so clear. So that won't happen easily now. But my point is this. If you are the Minister for Foreign Affairs or whatever it is your position is, and that situation could have occurred and Nigerians could have been wrongfully dealt with, one of our responsibilities is to the citizens of our country, is to look at how that can be redressed. So what I expect to do is, rather than dismiss it out of hand and say nothing happened to anybody, when there are people who can show documentary evidence that it happened to them, and even given what happened to the professor of Holocaust history, who is a Frenchman, it means obviously it can happen to a Nigerian, no doubt about that. What I expect to therefore be the next and correct step of action to be done is to say, this is how we address the effect on the ordinary man who may have been wrongfully addressed, rather than say it's a troublesome place to go into. And it's a challenge.
And speaking of which, Let's even go back to his communication. Let's see, because he spoke up about that after it's been circulated, after the senior special advisor did speak up on that matter. Here's the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
The current trending news about the United States of America, that Nigerians should be wary of going to the U.S., that the U.S. might have taken measures to stop Nigerians coming in. This is not the case. And I repeat, this is not the case. If the government is speaking on international relations, you will hear it from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you will hear it from the presidency. Any other source is not speaking for the government and is not definitive. And I've said that in the past, and I repeat it again. The Nigerian government, the U.S. government has been reaching out to Nigeria. The President of the U.S. Took the trouble to call our President and to offer the hand of cooperation, see how he was doing, and to congratulate him on the excellent work he's been doing. And our cooperation with them is exemplary. Nigeria is on no list. Nigerians are on no list banned by the U.S. government, and it really is business as usual, and very good business it is with the U.S. government. So anything else you hear in respect of the U.S. is incorrect, and anybody who has the documents, required documents to go to the U.S. or to go to any other country should please proceed to do so. We have absolutely no report whatsoever from our embassies in the U.S. or any of our consulates that any Nigerian has been turned back at the airport. If such a thing were the case, we would take it up. The government is obliged to take it up, as to why a Nigerian with a valid entry visa has been turned back. I'm in touch with the U.S. Embassy all the time. We contacted the U.S. ambassador. He said no such thing.
All right, so how did that come across to you?
Well, he said a lot of two things I would fall to what he said. Number one is we know that somebody in the presidency made a statement. And when the minister comes and is trying to assert territorial integrity of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it's almost like not a team work that has been done. If someone had even made an error in what you said we want to clarify government's position on the matter and then just move on. It's not a tough war. We don't need to do that because that gives an impression that the government is not working as one unit. But leaving that aside, he said people could not report from the embassy because they had not entered the U.S. The challenge is we need to learn to make things simpler for the man on the street to go about. In Nigeria, we make an instruction, we say it's possible for you to get a loan on particular matters, and then the man who wants to get the loan finds out that there are so many obstacles on his way to getting the loan that he can't get at it. You're saying you have no reports, but the question is, what is your process for receiving reports? When I get turned back, where do I go? The truth about it is that many of us who have traveled abroad and come back, they found out that when you literally go and you come back and you're either mistreated by airlines or by whatever it is that happens, you're on your own. You literally have to solve your own problem and get out. I mean, I've never been held up for that, but I've been in situations where I've seen that happen. So what's missing in his speech? I'm glad he said it. It's business as usual. I'm in touch with everybody. He's doing his work. But what about them people on the streets, the people who maybe have been affected? You see, you have got to work towards the weakest link in the chain. The weakest link is not the ambassador and government. The weakest link is the man who doesn't have access to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who you've not said, if this has affected you, there is a hotline.
So what would you recommend that they do at this point, especially maybe looking at the physical setting of the ministry? Should they have some desk that you could report to?
That's what they should have. They should have a desk, a hotline, because this was an emergency situation. And it's not really because of the people that were turned back. It's because certain things have messages they communicate. You know, every time you take some actions, they communicate a larger message. When you say to the man who got, or family who may have gotten turned back, because I hear some reports, there were some that had valid documents, you say to them, come, this is the hotline for you to address, and we will look at your matter within 48 hours, whatever it's worth. That's why you set such standards. What you say to the average man on the street is that you are an important personality in Nigeria. That is a gap we have in the country. We do not have this gap of transferring or communicating respect for the common man. And there is no basis for it. We communicate respect for the powerful, but not for the common man. Whereas ultimately, if you do not communicate respect for the common man, ultimately the whole nation suffers, because your value system and your decision making becomes flawed, because you're only taking decisions for a few rather than for all.